Yeah. I'm Mary Beth Bussin. I am one of the co-creators of Union Studio. We opened 5 years ago, and originally I opened it as my personal workspace. So I was working, sewing, doing some design work out of the space, and eventually worked up the guts to ask a few people if they'd be willing to let me maybe have their items in the space and sell them. They should have all said no to me, frankly. I mean, I really had no business doing that. But I did, and they were very generous. And the truth is that after a year, the retail side of the business was very successful. And I realized that it was more than I could do myself. And so in walks Sarah Kelly.
So Mary Beth and I have known each other for over 20 years, and after I had moved back to St. Louis after graduate school, which was not in business or merchandising or product development or anything close to that, and I was like, MB, I quit another job. And she was like, that's funny, I'm writing up a job description. And so over the last 5 years, we've, I guess 4 years, grown Union Studio together. So when I came on, there were 10 to 12 artists, and now we have over 80. And that's the premise of the store. Everything in the shop is handmade, all of the artists are local. And in terms of what's in the shop, it's everything from handmade soap to fine art. So there's clothing, textiles, jewelry. And I think the reason they asked us to come here today is because we pride ourselves on being really hands-on with all of our artists. So it's not just a quick retail exchange of, thank you for the stuff, now please get out. We don't work like that, and so we really work with people on developing product lines. We collaborate with people for things exclusive to our store, so we have our hands in that often. And then Mary Beth is super talented at displays, and all of the beauty that's in the shop obviously is thanks to the work that we carry, but she has a real eye for making it look pretty on the shelves. So,
has anyone in here never been in their store? Yeah, okay.
Cool.
So that's your first assignment.
Yeah.
Anyone here actually have products in their store? Okay, cool. I was just curious. Okay, so without any further ado, I think we're going to sit.
Yep.
If
you have questions or anything, if you haven't been to one of our teaching series before, we want it to be really laid back and interactive.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not.
No, that's right.
No,
I think you know us. Yeah.
Questions, they're here, we're here to serve you. So let's have conversation.
yeah, the more informal it could be, the better for us.
And I was going to jump just real quick and say the places that we were going to focus on today were pricing, packaging, and display and wholesale. And a lot of you guys, it sounded like we're really interested in the product development side of it, and we kind of stepped over that slightly. But I will say this, ask questions as we go, but if we can plow through it, we're happy to sit here and answer any questions that you want. And the truth is that in these 5 years, we've had the pleasure and really the honor to kind of watch over 100 creatives in this community go about their work. And in doing that, some of them we've been intimately involved with the design of their products, but whether we're doing that or not, we're watching them consistently day to day over a sustainable period, a long period of time, do this work. And the truth is 100 different creative people do that work very, very differently. And so I think what our hope is that what we can share with you is what we've observed and what we've got to participate in, so that if nothing else, we're not going to be able to tell each of you individually how to do this, but we can give you some ideas and some questions to ask of yourself, to be reflective and to figure out those kind of ways to go about this.
Yeah, that's the way we've basically structured this whole talk, is a series of questions to ask yourself, because like she said, we can't answer those for you. We can't answer how much you want to work or how much money you should make or anything like that. We can just present the questions that either we ask ourselves, we ask our artists to ask themselves, or we wish somebody had told us to ask ourselves before we went down the rabbit hole on something. So
we alluded to it in the beginning, which is neither of us have any professional training in any of these things.
Yeah.
Which I hope that we can do right by you. No, the truth is, honestly, so we didn't study this. It probably would have been helpful. And we often say, like, we don't know a lot about retail, but we know a lot about Union Studio. And what we know is what it takes on the personal side for us to run the business. We know very intimately what our customers are looking for, and they're generous with their dialogue with us, and we do our best to listen, and so we know our customers very well. And then we know our artists really well. These are people that we have watched have babies and come back to the work, put it on pause, try something else, try this, go down this path. And so although we don't have like professional training in this, we do know Union Studio well. And Union Studio is a really good glimpse of a lot of creative people doing work right now in St. Louis. So with that, that's what we'll share. So ask questions as we go, but also if we're not covering what you hoped that we would cover, then ask it at the end. It can be completely unrelated.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in your business development, you likely already know kind of what your talents are, what your interests lie, where you're hoping to go with your business. And as I said, the reason that we're talking to you today is to help you ask the questions to figure out how to make what you want to do sustainable. So what do we mean by sustainable? When we look at creative business, small business, where you're wearing every hat in the book, we're looking at you continuing to do the work for as long as you want to do it. So if you're hoping to do this for the rest of your life, then it's got to be sustainable for all that time. So or if you're looking for a stopgap to do this for 5 years, then it's sustainable that you're able to complete it and continue doing it consistently at the high quality level that you're doing it over that entire period. The second part is that it's financially profitable. This isn't like you're not losing money. This means you're making money. And we'll go into that, but that it's profitable, that it makes financial sense that you're doing this work. And the third part is that it fulfills you personally. So if it's not fulfilling you personally, either it's not fulfilling the creative spirit inside of you, it's not satisfying the desire that you have to maintain relationships, or you're not able to sleep, right? We're talking about it sustaining, fulfilling you personally, that it's meeting all of those needs. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about sustainability. As I said, what it looks like for each of you might be different. Some of you might say, like, my ultimate goal here is to quit what I'm doing and to do this work full time. Some of you might say, like, no, that's not my goal at all. My goal is that I need a job that I can work at home from, or that I have really flexible hours at. Somebody else might say, I'm just looking for supplemental income. It isn't going to support my entire family, but I need it to be supplemental. I need it to be steady. I need to be able to rely on it. Others might say, like, I'm looking for this gig to make as much money as it can possibly make. I don't care what it is that you want out of it, but you should know what you're trying to get out of it. You should know what the goal is of this creative endeavor. Maybe it's that you just want to do this for fun, and that you want to be able to try different things, or that you want to be in community with other creative people. Whatever it is, asking yourself that question of what your ultimate goal is for this is going to help you ask the right questions. These are big goals, right? All of those, you're like, yeah, they'd be nice. Like, if I could just swing one of those right now, that would be awesome. We know that. We know that these are big goals, but we really do believe that, that asking questions and being reflective about the work and recognizing where you have control in this. There's things that you can't control, and you're just on the roller coaster and you're hanging on. But I would venture to say that there is actually a lot of different points where you have control over it. When you're doing this work, you are your own boss, which means, bad news, it's all on your shoulders, right? This either works or it doesn't work, depending on you. Good news, if there's something that's important to you, you can make the decisions to protect that, whatever it is. Protect the profitability, protect the time you put into it, protect the relationships that you establish. Are you able to do business in a way that you feel good about? You have control over those aspects of, of this. So like I said, we're gonna focus on the areas of pricing, packaging, display, and wholesale. All of these areas can greatly impact the sustainability of your business. Did I miss anything?
No, I'm
Sweet.
next. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is pricing. So, like we said, we don't know where any of you are at your business, but we're guessing that if you're here, there is some interest in making money off of what you do. And so what we are gonna do is provide a framework for you that we talk to our artists about their existing products, and when they're saying, hey, I'm thinking about trying something new. And like Mary Beth said, you know, basing your pricing off of what your competitors are doing isn't necessarily going to be right for your business, because they might have different customers, they might have different goals, they might have different suppliers. And so really what we're going to talk about now is just a list of things that you can ask yourself when you're looking at pricing. Now later in the talk we're going to talk about wholesale, but something to keep in the back of your mind as you're answering these pricing questions is if you want to do wholesale, there needs to be even more money in the product that you're talking about selling. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, so how do you set a retail price? So the first question that you should ask yourself, in our opinion, is how much should I make an hour? And that isn't necessarily going to mean that you can do that full time off the bat, but we have found that it's a lot easier when you're setting prices in your work to think about doing it full time off the bat, because something you want to avoid doing in prices is jumping up and jumping down, and I need more money now so this is more expensive, or I need more money now so this is on sale. So really thinking about, if you wanted to do this work full time, ideally what would I like to make an hour? And then the second piece of that is then when you're looking at a particular product, you want to think about how long does it take for me to make this product? So we recommend timing yourself from start to finish. And also timing yourself from start to finish when you're working in a run, right? So does that time change if I'm making 1, if I'm making 5, or if I'm making 20? And for people that are new to their business or new to your craft, the next question is, will I get faster, right? Will I get better? If I can make enough money to buy that helpful piece of equipment, what will that do to my time? Because sometimes when you're setting prices, you know, say you work in leather goods and right now you're hand stitching. That takes a really long time. But if in your business plan you know in 3 months you're going to be able to buy a sewing machine that will do that work for you, it might make sense to set your prices at what it will be when you have the sewing machine as opposed to hand stitching. Again, just to avoid that variability in your pricing. The next question is, what are my material costs? So what did I pay to purchase the materials to make this piece? And that's including shipping. We learn that lesson all the time, is that you're like, oh yeah, this shirt was, you know, $5 to get, but then you realize like it costs $40 every time you order them. And so that shipping cost is something you should be calculating. Another quick tip about pricing your materials out is that if all of you have like a resale license, sometimes you can get the tax taken off of your supplies. So just a quick note, something to look into. But about material costs, right? When you're looking at the price of that, again, ask yourself the question, is it a different amount if I buy enough to make 1, if I buy enough to make 5, if I buy enough to make 20? Because sometimes it makes sense to buy in bulk and other times it doesn't make sense. The next question is, how often do I make mistakes? Because as makers and as people in creative business, we all make mistakes. We make mistakes daily. And so accounting for that in your pricing structure can be really helpful so that you don't end up making at a loss if you mess something up.
Just to interject on that. So, you know, we talk about if you're doing something and you get better at it, you likely do it quicker, right? Which is going to decrease your overall time. But the truth is that even if you get better at something, if you're doing creative work, this making mistakes thing, build it into the cost. That's an honest thing. It's an honest thing to say to someone that in creative work, for me to be able to do this over and over again, I have to try different things because I'm not a machine. And in doing that, it takes time away from my ability to produce. And that is part of the cost of creative work, is the ability to make mistakes. We're not talking about necessarily the mistakes where they're just careless or whatever, something like that, but that happens too. And so don't be sheepish about doing that. I know that at this part where we're at pricing and we're and account for this, and account for this. You're this is gonna be so expensive. No one is ever going to buy this. This is horrible. My business is going to sink. Just hang on, man. It's okay. Again, these are the ideals. And again, what we're trying to do is don't be afraid to look at the real numbers. Don't be afraid to look at the big picture about where you want to go. If this is just about wanting something and working harder, we'd all be rich. It's not. I mean, it's great. It's great to want something and it's great to work hard. But don't be afraid. Look at the big picture, look at the real numbers, and then adjust. You might have to give up something somewhere, but you don't want to give it up without knowing what you're giving up.
Yeah, the reason we made this list is because, and even us, 5 years in, we've had conversations where well, if we just sell more, then you make more money. And that is not true. If you don't have the right prices set on your products, because you get caught in materials, you get caught in time, you get caught in all these other places.
Actually, you just work more.
Yeah.
That's the truth. If your profit margin never improves, you just work more. Which is not the game here, The truth is, you're gonna work hard. Nobody in here gets to get out of that. Small business, if you're not looking to work hard, this is not the place to be. That's true. But knowing profit margins and understanding profit margins, that's where you really gotta look. And it's scary, right? We quit looking because the numbers add up and you're ah! Don't be afraid. Here we go.
Okay. The last question that we like to ask people is, what would you like to fund with the money that you're gonna make off of what you're making? So again, are you talking about paying your bills? Are you talking about just having extra money? Do you need to buy something for your workshop or for your store? And so accounting for your goals and your prices is great, just because you have that forward vision, but also it feels nice that when you achieve it. Which is always good. It's always great to feel a sense of accomplishment in what you're doing in terms of your small business. So a couple of other points that we wrote about pricing is then how does this tie into what we're talking about, right? How does this tie into creating sustainable business? And so the next questions are, what does the price that you've landed on, right? What does that communicate to your customers? So thinking about the price range that you're in, what does that imply to the people looking at your stuff? Also, do your prices make sense as in a collection, right, as a whole? We give advice to artists all the time that if you're presenting a collection in the shop, having things at multiple price points is really helpful, because then you can target lots of different audiences, right? People have different amounts of money. They're willing to spend different amounts on different things. So it's great to have a range. And if there is an outlier in your collection, right? If there's something that's way cheaper or way more expensive, is there a reason for that, right? Did you decide to use brass instead of gold in your jewelry because you wanted a low price, high volume item? Or vice versa, did you make something super high end, but that's under a different umbrella of your business, right? And so just so you know that, because people are gonna ask if there's an outlier or if your items don't make sense as a whole collection. And that leads into the question of, do you know what the different products in your collection, what needs they're filling in your business, right? So does something demonstrate your talent? And you know that there's probably no way in hell anybody's ever gonna buy it because it's thousands and thousands of dollars, but it really shows off what you can do. Or is this your high volume money maker? Everybody that comes into your store, everybody that swings by your table buys one of these. So having an understanding of what needs your different items in your collections are filling is also really helpful.
Let me add one thing here. Those of you that are looking at the issue of product development, these are answers in some ways, right? So are you creating a work that looks good as a collection, right? That's one way to consider where you need a new product. One would be like, are your customers looking for a specific item? Are they asking you continuously about a specific item? Do you have work that is high volume, right? That hits a profit mark that you know you're going for high volume on. If you don't have one of those, get one. That might be a good place to do product development. Do you have pieces that show off your work, your talent, your unique style? If you don't have that, like she said, they might not buy it, but having that piece showing part of who you are and what you're capable of is important to selling maybe this lower priced, high volume work.
And chances are you'll have a really good time making whatever that high end piece is.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and there's a few more in here, but these really are, I mean, when we sit and talk about product design, development in our space, in our shop, I mean, we're looking for niches. We're looking for niches with artists that isn't competitive, but it's complementary. And so again, that would work for yourself. Like, you don't want to develop a product that's going to be a direct competitor for something you already are carrying, right? You're looking for complementary things, both in how they look, in price points, in desires, in functions. Are you looking for items that work together? You've got this one item, and by developing a second item, they'll likely be sold as a pair. Right? These are all sorts of those areas.
Yeah. In terms of getting back to price a little bit, when you've landed on your prices, is that in line with your competitors? So people that make similar work to you. It doesn't have to be in line, but I think being aware of where you fall in the realm of people that do things similar to you is always helpful. And then the big question, right? Will people buy your work at the price that you've set? And if you think not, where can you adjust, right? Then this circles back to, if I'm making bigger runs, if I buy supplies in bulk. Unfortunately, the answer is sometimes if I pay myself less, though we are never an advocate of that. But right, looking back at all the questions that we've talked about thus far and seeing where there's wiggle room and if there's wiggle room, and if at the end you don't think people will buy it at what it needs to be priced at, sometimes that's okay. And then you just move on to the next product, or you move on to the next idea, or you move on to the next thing. Because assuming, again, that you're doing this to make money, people purchasing it is imperative.
That's right. So the circle back is materials, can you adjust it there? Time, can you adjust it there? Or design, can you adjust it there? All three of those things are going to dictate the cost of these goods. Do you guys have any questions on there? We keep talking about like working in runs. Does that make sense for everyone? Okay.
Okay, last couple points about pricing. I've mentioned this before, but avoid changing your prices. Just because something that we really pride ourselves on is having a lot of trust between us and our customers. And, you know, if we have a jewelry artist, for instance, and the price of silver skyrockets, we raise prices. That makes sense. That's something that we can explain to our customers. What you can't explain is if something's $20 one day, it's $40 the next, $32 the following, then people, one, and this is really important for us, don't believe the prices on handmade work, which is something that we struggle with regularly.
It just appears arbitrary, right?
Yeah.
It appears that we have more profit built into this item than we do, which
is not the
We all know this is not true. There's never enough profit in handmade work. Do something else.
Yeah. So if you do need to change your prices, you can be honest and upfront with your customers about that, but we always just recommend avoid jumping around. The second piece is keep it simple, right? If after you do the math on all your stuff, one of your bookmarks is going to be $16 and the other one's going to be $15, just keep it simple. Make them both $16. Like, that's not dishonest. And it makes it for an easier experience for your customer to not try to have to figure out the different prices of different stuff. And then the last piece that we have on pricing is that your prices should be consistent, right? What you sell directly for should be what you're recommending retail prices to be to your wholesalers, to what you sell online for. Like, it should be the same across the board, right? If you have a product that's $20 in your shop, it should be $20 in your wholesaler shops. It should be $20 when people see you in person. Now that doesn't mean that like you can't give it to your mom for $5 if you are going to charge your mom. Hey, we're talking about making money. Pay up, Mom. But that consistency, again, builds that trust, not only between you and your customers, but also you and who you would like to be your wholesale clients, customers, retailers, whatever the term is.
Stockists.
So, stockists.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the spiel on pricing. Are there questions, things that are confusing right now?
Yeah, let her rip.
What are your thoughts on the psychology of having something priced as like $49.99 versus $50?
Yeah. We do that, I would say. You know.
Wait, $49.99?
Well, we don't do 99.
I was like, no, we don't.
We would make it 48.
Okay.
Yeah. So
unless that dollar really matters.
That's right.
And sometimes it does.
You're going to see similar numbers consistently, right? You see a lot of things ending in 8, 2 in our shop. And it is because there is a simplicity in that, in seeing the same number kind of throughout, right? It's not, there's a lot going on in our shop. We have over 80 artists. A theme that you're going to see in what we talk about in display and in packaging is providing order to something that could otherwise be chaotic. And so numbers like that matter. The 99 question, like ending in 99, we can thank TV ads for that. There's a cheapening feel of that. I would say this, in handmade work, it's going to cost more. It's going to cost more because people are getting paid in the chain. And the truth is that mass-produced goods, until you get up to a certain number, they cost the same amount too. People just aren't getting paid in the chain. Of course, once you're up to a higher number, like no one can compete with that. But really, like what we're talking about here, these goods are going to cost more. And so all of the things we're talking about here, talk about like what we're trying to do is present and talk about our goods in the light that they should be talked about, that these are quality items. Number one, we got to make sure we're producing quality items. If our customers can't trust that they're going to consistently get quality items, they're going to quit buying from you. So one is they've got to be quality, but then two, we've got to do a good job to talk about what makes these different, and that they are high quality, and that they are connected to a person that you can speak to directly with transparency and honesty to understand what the cost of these goods, why it is what it is. You know what? That's refreshing. It's not a game. It's not a game that we like arbitrarily price things and then see if somebody will pay it. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to like pay for something like that and wonder like, were they just like trying to make money there? The truth is, like, our own neighbors come into our shop. And the truth is you can buy cheaper items. Like, you can buy a hand towel for a lot cheaper than we sell it. And you know what? Sometimes you need a cheaper hand towel. That's totally fine. I have all sorts of cheap hand towels. But when I have my neighbor come in and they ask, like, why is this so expensive? That's not offensive. It's a good question. Like, this is a lot more money than I usually see these kinds of items go for. Well, we can say exactly why. Like, we know why it costs this, and we can say that. And if you want to buy it or can buy it is a different question, and it's okay if you don't want to. But if you want to know why it costs this much, we can tell you that. You should be able to do that with your work. That's part of this being a connection to you personally, is your ability to understand it and why it costs what it does and communicate that.
That was such a better answer than I gave.
I kind of made it up.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of explaining to a customer why something costs more?
Yeah.
Sure.
So we often talk about the artist's story, right? So this is a person that does this full time, or this is a family business, and not only are they sourcing great materials, but they hand print the work themselves in their studio that they pay rent for. And so we often are attaching narrative, which is about the people that are trying to make money doing this, talking about the quality of the materials that they're using, which in our shop is very high quality typically. And then we talk about the time, right? People ask a lot, how long did this take to make somebody? How long did this take to make? And the answer to that is normally stunning to them because it takes a long time to make a high quality product. We will also often talk about somebody's experience or education, right? If they are classically trained in what they're doing. So those are sort of the points that we hit with people. Did I miss anything? Any other questions about pricing before we talk about packaging? Okay. Yeah.
That's all right.
Course, our model's just a little bit different, but in even thinking, there's obviously has to be a margin that is not, I mean, you have, maybe it costs you with materials and what you pay yourself. Just throw out a number, it costs $10 to make this.
Yeah.
So then,
What should you sell it for?
what should you sell it for? You're looking at your margin, because if
Yeah.
you're going to wholesale, well, you can't wholesale it with exactly what it costs you, or you
Then you make no money. That's right.
For what you paid yourself, so.
Yes. There's not a magic number. There's not. And I'd like to tell you it, but when I say go back to your goals, that I really do mean that. So you're right. If you're going to wholesale and you know that's where you want to grow your business out, then it's got to be, you've got to at least make enough that you're covering all those costs and making more, right, that can go into the pot of growing your business. And you're going to lose the 50% of it to the wholesaler. So there isn't a set number. Ideally, as you go, it can get bigger, right? But I can't give you a number. But it's, I mean, and again, on each item, it might not be the same every single time. You might know that you're giving part of your margin, but you expect this to be a high volume area. You might have a threshold that you never go below, that you say, like, I've got to always mark it up at least this amount or my business doesn't work. You might not know what that threshold is yet, but after you've done it for 6 months, you make a deal with yourself that you're going to reflect back and look and see, was this margin enough to do what I wanted to accomplish in this period of time? So when I say don't be afraid, look at the whole picture, I mean, like, look at it from the beginning and build that into this. And you know what? You're going to overshoot sometimes, but most of the time you're going to undershoot. That's what we do most of the time, right? We're afraid that if we price it too high, they're not going to buy it, which is true. Like, this doesn't work unless people buy it. And so I'm not saying you can't just jack your price up real high and see if it goes. Again, it can't be arbitrary, but know what you're doing and do it thoughtfully, and then reevaluate and adjust. And so I know that doesn't answer it directly, but that's the real thing, is all of the things we're saying, put it together and see what makes sense for what you're doing personally. All right.
Next slide, please.
So we've got a product that we feel good about. We've got a price that makes sense. We're going to talk about packaging. People's first impression of your work is often based on the packaging. As much thought as you put into the development and creation of your product should go into the packaging of it. When we say packaging, we mean everything from the container it goes to the sticker that shows the price. So some things to ask yourself about your packaging. I think this was the last thing I was going to say, but I'm going to say it first. I know that some people feel strongly that they don't want a lot of packaging with their products, and that's for all sorts of reasons. It's for like the look of it, the aesthetic of it. It's for the environmental concerns of it. Listen, if that's important to you, then go with it and follow it. But don't not do packaging because you're sick of working on it and you want to go on to the next item to create, which is okay. Like I know that. What I'm saying is be intentional about that and build that into a strength of your business and what you talk about. But don't just like not think about packaging and then default to minimal packaging. Okay, so things to think about. Does it look good? Is that what I put? Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Really deep. Does it look good? But I mean it. Like, when you look at it, are you like, this looks finished. This looks good in its entirety, either in the container, in the box, however it is, like, does this look good? Would I be proud to give this as a gift? Can customers interact with it, properly interact with it? Can they pick it up? Can they smell it? Can they hold it?
And this is where samples come into play, right? If you've got like a dope box that you love, that you want your stuff to be in, that's great. Just have a sample, right? And provide a sample to the people that sell your work for you.
Yeah, yep. Does it have your name on it? All right, so here's the thing, like sometimes some of these items are not going, I mean, they'll have a hang tag, and obviously like make sure it has your name on it, make sure it's spelled correctly. But it can be a maker's mark. If this doesn't work for you, if like what you're making, somebody doesn't want your logo on it in their house, you can put a maker's mark on it. That can be all sorts of things. And it can be the mark that you literally put on your items as a handmade piece of work. So it can be a signature, it can be something they can take off, but make sure that your mark is on there. It matters, right? It matters for people that are gonna pay extra for handmade work. The mark of the maker is value. That's something only you can do and provide on that item. Does it have the price on it? Yeah, that's important. But here's another layer of that. Can you take the price off easily? A lot of these items are given as gifts. So do they have to like take a marker and scribble on that really pretty box that you designed?
And scribble over your name to like get it off.
Yeah. Right? So think about pricing and the ability to take the price off it easily to be given as a gift. Are your sizes clearly marked? Does the packaging complement or add value, not distract?
Yeah, and so when we're talking about packaging, like sometimes it seems schemy, right? Like what kind of label can I put on this that makes it so enticing to people that they buy it, right? And we feel that way, like sometimes like if we put this fancy bow on it, like does it make people want it more? And there are tricks, right, to packaging. There's tricks to merchandising. There's tricks to making people enticed. The important piece is that it's actually not a trick, right? That when people open up the box, when they open up the bag, that what's inside is good, right? Because what you don't want is to have really like, I sound like my mom saying snazzy, but like snazzy packaging. And then you open it up and what's inside sucks. Like nobody likes that. Nobody's gonna feel good about that. So that's just like a small disclaimer of like, whatever you're gonna put this much effort packaging-wise into, you should be really proud of what's gonna be on the inside when people open it up.
And it's not sleazy to honestly communicate what it really is. If what it really is isn't so great and you made really good packaging, that's kind of not cool. But if what's in there is really good quality work and it's presented as such, then that's honest communication. That's what this is. At the end of it, everything that we're doing here, everything we do in our shop is really about relationships and communication. Like, what are you saying? In the transaction of these goods, what is being said from one person to another? So if you're being honest about it and you're being forthright and upfront in that the packaging matches the items, like these are all good things. Does your packaging make sense for display? Okay, if your item needs to be stacked, can it be? Do you know what I'm talking about here? People make items and they want to stack them, and when the customer touches it, they all tumble. Yeah. It's really like elementary, but it's really important. Mm-hmm. If the customer gets scared away because the display has like kind of crumbled around them, like they usually backpedal and they don't go back and buy it. Also, if you're selling wholesale and you give a shopkeeper something that is a total pain to display, they don't want to restock it because it is a pain. So anyway, think about your packaging. How can your packaging help you in display?
And the other piece of that is like, can it be restocked quickly, right? So the hope here, right, is that we're all going to be so busy that stuff's flying off the shelves. And if you have to, like, because of the packaging, ever so, like, you know, carefully hang something on a small wire, like, that doesn't lend itself to like rapid sales. So again, just thinking about what kind of sales do you want to do, where do you want to do them, and what sort of packaging makes the most sense for those types of sales.
Yeah, we'll get to displays and talking about height. But sometimes you can design packaging to fix a problem you have for display. If you are producing goods that are really difficult to figure out how to get height, but with like an adjustment of the packaging, you can provide height in a display. Like, it might be worth it in your packaging design to fix a display problem also. Does that make sense? Cool. Is your work meant to be viewed from the top or the side? So think about how people come to your table or in a shop, right? They see it from afar, they see the front. They come up on the table and they see it from the top. So think about, if you're displaying it, if you know how you're going to display it, what do you want them to see, right? Do they need to see your name? Do they need to see something? The information about what it is? Think about how the customer's going to approach it. And if you don't know, then consider options in your packaging that allow it to be seen from different angles. Is there consistency throughout your packaging? Again, your packaging can help. It can help provide order to an otherwise chaotic display, but it also can provide a theme. Right? The packaging can support an overall theme of like the visuals of your products and the story that you tell through them. Does your packaging work for shipping? If your business is going to do high volume shipping, do you have to provide additional packaging on top of the packaging, or can that be incorporated into the packaging? Is it a size that fits multiples in a box to be shipped to a wholesaler or a customer? Think a step ahead on the packaging on the front end. It might help you with shipping.
Yeah, using plastic instead of glass, like if you make products for the shower, or if you're going to be shipping online a lot, like having those considerations. Like some people say like, no, my product's in glass, it's important to me, it's more sustainable, it looks better, whatever. But if you do, 50 online sales a week and you need to wrap everything in bubble wrap and like deal with it when it breaks, like for people, like it's just a question to ask yourself.
Yeah, make sure you think about it. People are going to ask you about plastic or glass. So be prepared with an answer. And it's okay whatever the answer is. Whatever makes sense for you and your business, but know why you do what you do. So think about that one. Also include the cost of packaging in your price of the goods. Like one roll of ribbon, not so much.
Ribbon's expensive. I didn't know that.
Right.
And so I worked at Union Studio, and Mary Beth taught me how to tie a bow.
We're still working on it. But think about that. If these are things you're doing, look for wholesale items like that. For one, don't be paying taxes on stuff. Packaging is part of your materials.
For all of the stuff.
Do that, yeah. But also include it in the cost of your goods. Like, the goal here is that this is going to be sustainable, that you're going to be doing this for a period of time, and you won't just be buying one roll of ribbon, that you're going to eventually buy multiple rolls of ribbon at a time. Yeah.
That's it on the packaging, and then we were going to take a break. I don't know what time it is.
Hey,
look at that.
right on time.
So, are there questions about packaging, anything that we said before we all take a break?
Yeah, no, ask. We're great.
So I participated in Small Business Saturday last year, and a lot of the stuff that I was selling are like agates and crystals, and so I can do like, or I can write like the lettering on it. And so that I came to find that it was like a lot of work to set up, and but it's like my most popular thing. Like I always sell so much of it, and it's really eye-catching, but it's hard to stack, and they're breakable, and so how can you?
My first thought is like, what sort of display could you invest in or have built, right, that allows them to show off but has a flat surface or something underneath, right? Can you get a drawer? Can you get a type of pyramid thing? That might be sort of specific, and I don't know what you were gonna say, but yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say that I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, which is a flaw on my part. So explain to me again what it is.
So there's like geodes.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
Slice.
Yes.
So I do a lot of like coaster agate stuff. And, like big rocks. So they're not like all consistent either. They're all like natural materials, so they vary in size, which is interesting because the whole pricing thing was like they're all different. You know?
Right.
So that's just kind of like something I encountered last year is they're hard to like carry, they're hard to set up, and they're all like, kind of random, but they're like my best. Everyone loves them. So
let me think about that. I'm going to think about it on the break and tell you.
And I can show you what I mean.
That's great. That picture would be really helpful. Cool.
Yeah, she's probably the one you actually want to ask. I'm like, I don't know, build a pyramid.
There's a reason we work together, though, honestly. She's acting like I've got good ideas, but like also someone needs to shut me up sometimes and like be like, that's not what we're doing. Can you focus, please? That's true.
Is there anyone that you can think of off the top of your head that you know that you just love how they do their packaging that you think is like the front runner in terms of all of these things?
Picking a favorite.
And publicly, too.
We're not gonna have you shame it.
So I will say a very recent addition that we've had to the shop, so this is not a favorite, but I feel like she had really nice packaging, was Glow Candle Co. She's got, it's because there's so much consistency, right? The boxes are all the same. They're a beautiful color blue, which is like almost is a neutral in any space. The lettering has like a little bit of a sheen to it on the front, which is like slightly eye-catching. And then it's on our front table right now, which is like why I'm thinking of that. And then there's a sample out of each of the boxes, right? So people can pick it up, smell it, and because sometimes when you have a sample, people try and buy the sample, and it's like, no, don't do that. Like, get the fresh one. But for whatever reason, her boxes and the samples make sense to customers. They recognize they're a different scents, and then they always pick up the box, right? When it's time to like purchase one.
Yeah, so it makes sense. Yeah. No, I think it's a great example. I honestly, if I'm thinking about this, it's the things you don't realize, right? Like paper goods, right? If you're picking up the card and every time you go to pick it up, the envelope drops, right? It's like, if you can rectify that and it's already got the name on it, and it's ready to go, right? It's clear. All of these things happen seamlessly without thinking. We're talking about thinking over and over, like at all these small little things. But the people that are doing this well, you don't notice because it's smooth. It's smooth to like see what it is, you know it, you understand it, you know how to buy it, you know what's expected of you in the exchange of money. So I punted. I didn't name someone, but that is the truth. You know, it's all these little things that you don't notice.
I was going to mention too, I bought a gift once at your store. I want to say it was the towels, the St. Louis, the
Sprouted.
where it actually comes in a box that's actually like, I think it's that the box is actually like hand.
Yeah. Those are our gift sets,
Right.
Yeah,
and so
gotcha.
that was like, you know, I got even more excited.
Yeah.
You know, and of course I told that to the person.
So that's an added value example. So
we did a collaboration with Pele Prints where they hand printed a gift box for us, but the side of it could be punched out and framed because they are a fine art printer. And that was really exciting, but we had to charge for the box, right? Which was a consideration. Like, are the gift sets that we're putting in here substantial enough yet cheap enough that they can accommodate the cost of a specialty box?
Yeah.
It works.
It works.
Yeah,
it's true.
It works great, but it was a question, you know, for sure.
You want us to tell you a bunch of things that haven't worked? We can do that too.
Yeah, we got a lot of those.
Not naming names.
Oh, no, I meant about ourselves. I would never do that, yeah.
If you want to mention some things that would be helpful.
Yeah, things that we've made mistakes on today, or
How far back should we go?
yeah,
I'll think about it.
yeah.
I just wondered about some examples of packaging for jewelry.
Yeah.
I mean, jewelry is great when it comes carded, right? And there's consistency in the carding of it, and knowing if it's going to be hung or flat are two different types of cards, right? So when you try and flat lay a card that's been folded because it was supposed to hang, it doesn't lay nice, right? So again, it's thinking about how you want to display it. Things that come with the price on them that can't fall off is important.
Yeah, if you're thinking about, again, you're thinking about direct sales for yourself, and then you're thinking about wholesale. So remember, with wholesale, you're not displaying these items. So if you know there's a good way, and we'll get to this, for your product to be displayed, then your packaging, let it support that. And then you've kind of like laid it in their lap, right? Like, here's the recommendation about the best way that customers interact with this work. I think consistency, that's right. I think honestly, for our shop, I mean, again, that's what we know, but a background that is fairly neutral, right? So that your work is showing. Honestly, it's also easier to display it with other pieces. I know some people feel strongly like that the color that they want their work to stand out, but know your retailer, and so know what works for them. And I would say for jewelry in particular, make sure that it's a background that's not distracting of the work.
Yeah.
So when we talk about display, today we're going to focus on pop-ups, like direct sales, you're selling at an event. And then wholesale, so somebody else is selling your work for you. We're not going to do online, because that's just like a whole nother beast. So again, does it look like care was taken in the presentation of your work? If it doesn't, it speaks about your work. Does the overall feel of the display match the way that you speak about your products? So think about the words you use, think about what you're trying to communicate through the work that you make, and is the way you're displaying them make sense? Does it fit that? This is achieved through every small decision you make in your display, from the tablecloth, to the props, to the signs, to the vessels you're using. All of those things go together to create a feel.
And just to interject, we have 5 examples of our own displays from in the shop and at pop-up events that we will go through next, and we'll talk a little bit about what we like about them, what their strengths are, and then, though they're nearly flawless, if there's anything that we thought could be done better.
Yeah, so again, as is kind of our format, like we're gonna talk about the questions and the things to ask yourself and to consider, and then we'll look at some examples. when we talk about the feel that it's providing, is it feel organized? Does it feel collected, like over a period of time? Does it feel energizing? Does it feel soothing? Again, I don't care what it feels like. Just know that you should care what it feels like for your customer to interact with it. Some of the things like, when we talk about it being visually appealing, things like balance. So I'm actually talking about weight here. When you look at a display in sum, does it look balanced? As if things taking up visual space have weight. Does it look like the table would tip heavy if those things had actual weight to them? Think about looking, take a picture of your work and then look at it. Varied height. Is it all exactly the same height? That's okay. Do you need it to be varied? Are the colors complementary? Again, if they're not, and your look is like energetic and chaotic, like that is okay. I mean, clearly Union Studio has a style, right? And what I want for you is to have your style for your work. And so, you know, complementary colors, does it work with, like, does your packaging work? Do your props and linens work? Does all of this work together to tell a cohesive story? Sometimes if you only have one product that you're selling, you kind of need visual interest. So we kind of have two different problems sometimes. People have lots of different items that they sell, and they're trying to kind of produce order in the way they present it. And the other extreme is like, I only make one thing. I make different versions of it, but it really is visually, it's one thing, and I need some like interest added to it. So looking at your table or your display, where do you fall there? Do you already have a lot of interest and you need to provide kind of structure and organization so the customer knows how to interact with it? Or is it kind of like bland and you need to provide variation and visual interest? When you look at it, do your eyes settle in one spot or do they move around? You probably want them to move around. And you can control where the eyes are drawn by colors, by height, by balance, all of these things. So when you build out your display and you practice it, see what happens. Like, what do your eyes do when they're looking at it? Can customers get the information they want from your display? The information they want from your display is, what is this? What is it made out of? Will it look good on me? What's the price? And like, can I touch it and interact with it? And they want to do this quickly. Some events, you've got time to linger. And if you've done these events before, think about in the past, you know there are some where like the feel and the flow is slower, and you have time to do that. But sometimes that's not what an event is, and it feels pretty fast, and people's attention span is pretty short. And so if it's that kind of event, can you play? Like, can you hang with this pace? And so having each of those things covered, again, this is like, you know, the customer they want to know about you and they want to know about your product. And yeah, you're standing there, like when it's direct sales, and you can tell them those things, but they've already made some assumptions about your work without you ever opening your mouth. And just make sure that you know what you're saying to them.
Yeah, and then the final piece of the puzzle, so after we talk through display, we're going to talk a little bit about wholesale. But, you know, when you think about all of the work that you do when you're doing direct sales, telling your story, telling customer experiences, saying what people love about your product, saying what it's made of, all of that, that doesn't happen when you have stockists, right? When you are selling wholesale to other people. So when you think about display and packaging and things like that, something to take into consideration is the narrative that you want going with your piece still going with it if you're not sitting there? And are you talking to your stockists about those types of things, right? Are you giving them talking points for your products? Have you given them display suggestions? So sometimes when we get a line sheet from people, it'll have photos on it that say, my product sells well for me when it's hung like this, or whatever. So that's an important part of making sure that your work is going out the door, that people are interacting with it properly. The other thing, like we mentioned earlier, is providing samples. So if you have something that's closed or contained, something to be consumed, is there a sample in your display that people can properly interact with? And again, just honing in the idea that your story should be effectively communicated by your packaging. That's particularly important, again, like when you're not at the table to speak to it.
We said it earlier, but is it easy to restock your item? Talk about building displays. You can build your displays so that they're easy to be restocked. Think about, if this sells, what am I going to do? And if the table is full of people, do I have something that I can scoot over slightly to fill the space until I have time to get the next one and put it up there? Thinking ahead about what happens when these items sell.
Because they will.
They will. As you build the display. Dang, I wish I knew this like 5 years ago. The first holiday season, oh man, I had no idea what I was doing.
But this past year, past couple of years, we stocked this stuff like underneath where it went, and it was a heaven sent. It was like the holidays were easy because we were like, oh, it's just right there. And
which again,
put it, like,
small business 101. Like we should have known this, but we didn't. But it matters. Think about when things sell, how to fix the display. Which brings us to another thing, which is think about how many overall products should I take to this event? You might make 20 different things. And I'm not talking about, 20 different dresses. I'm talking about different products. Do you bring them all? It's a lot to set up. And I know the feeling, which is like you don't know what people are going to want to buy, and you don't want to miss the opportunity to put it in front of them because you want to sell these things. And some of this is just experience, right? If you've been to a certain event before, you know kind of what's a hot seller. But if you don't know that, just know that you're trying to gather that information. The goal would be that you're trying to understand the audience at a particular event or during a particular time of year so that you don't have to bring every possible thing you have, because one, it's heavy and you get tired. But two, it's not always a better display. It's possible to have too much displayed. So customers like choices, but the truth is they don't want all the options because it's overwhelming. And so if there's ways in your display or in your offering to have them make sense or have it be your best shot at what you think is going to work, that might be a better way to go. Think about how many overall items you want to offer. The other side is it's possible that you don't have a lot of product. And so sometimes what happens is you don't have enough to fill a table. Like, what do you do then? Because I couldn't make any more. Don't be afraid to shrink your display, right? Sometimes spreading it out over the whole table makes it look empty. But pulling it in tighter and giving some varied height and a space that you can stand to talk is a better approach than trying to act like I got a lot, right? And the thing is, you're gonna feel like that in different situations, right? Like everyone's gonna feel like, I really had hopes of making a lot more for this show and I didn't get to it or whatever. It happens. Other people might not even notice. Or you might feel like, I've got it all, like take it people. But you might wanna rein it back in a little bit. All right.
Yeah, the other thing, quick things about display are where to situate things that are expensive, right? So if you make expensive jewelry or something like that, knowing that that should be closer to you is something to keep in mind. And also, if you have like a grab and go item that's $5 or $10 and you want everybody coming to your table to grab one of those, right? That you need to think about how you want that display, right? Do you want a bunch of them up there? Are they in the most prominent place? Like, is that like, do you have a beautiful sign next to it? Like, what is it? What can you do to encourage people to take that one item is something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and that goes with numbers too. Like if you have your highest priced item and you have tons of them, it's possible that by displaying all of them, it looks like it's not unique or that it's not as special. And so consider perhaps displaying one of them and when it sells, replacing it. Or when you have someone engaged with that item, you say then, I do have other items similar to this available, and then have it under your table or somewhere else that you can take it out and show them and have them engaged. Likewise, if it's like a lower priced item that you want to sell high volume on, sometimes things look better in multiples with a lot. And sometimes it doesn't just look better, but it also keeps a product stocked that you know will sell quickly. So thinking about what are the items that look good with a lot of them, like if there's a lot or that doesn't look good, and then also your intent. Do you want these going quick or not? And can you support that sort of purchase?
Any questions on any of those sort of themes before we look at some of our own displays?
Uh-oh, you guys are really quiet.
Yeah.
Are we doing okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's look at pictures.
Okay.
Maybe that'll help. This is a front table in our shop. If you haven't been to our shop, when you come in, there is a table that is right in the front. So as you're coming in the door, you can see the whole table. You can see all the way to the left, all the way to the right. This front table is most likely to change seasonally in our shop. So it's going to reflect what's going on seasonally. It's springtime.
There's plants, flowers, llamas, those are seasonal.
And so inevitably in our shop, there's a way that people move in our shop. And you know, some people don't, but typically we know the exact route that people are going to take. And on this table, they're going to come in, they're going to see it from afar, which means from afar, I have to have enough height that they can see. Those things are visually appealing. I'm standing right in front of you. But then what they do is they come right up to the table. And so now when they're on top of the table, they're looking down at the table. And so then we have to have some flat lays in the front. And so we've got height, and this picture is cropped. But there's varying height here. There is a lot of products on this table. And honestly, sometimes there's less products. I would say it's possible that we have too many products on this table. I typically, I said before, we have over 80 artists, and I'm constantly trying to provide more organization in the displays, which is not something that I think, like, if you come into the shop, you're not going to be like, this place is organized. And in fact, that's not the feel of the shop. It isn't organized. You know, you think of like those Pottery Barn places that have cubicle bins and there's like colors and they're all in boxes. Like, it does not have that feel at all. But in my mind's eye, it's providing organization. So putting like things together to provide a little bit more calm for all of the products that are in there.
Any questions about this particular display? Okay, can you get our next display? Okay. Well, there's weight and balance in here, which I don't know if you want to speak to, but we're also talking about color consistency in here. So, right, there's black and white over on the edge, there's a red hat, but then the red marker below, which gives organization to products that are very different.
Those red, like primary color of red does not show up in our shop very often. And so to have them together, the safest place is with black and white. There's also what's happening here is typically a although it's not all items, when people are asking for items for guys, they're grouped together here. And then, I mean, you can tell when you look at this, your eye is moving, right? And it holds at certain places, and that's intentional. I do want to say about this display too, this display is always seen straight on also. So in our shop, people move.
Door.
Yeah.
People always
they move to the right.
And they go this way. So then they walk on this, coming down basically like a little hallway straight at it.
So they can see this table from far away again, which means they've got things you can see all the way to the right and all the way to the left, which is why most of these items are straight on facing, right? Because you're going to approach it straight on.
And it's also why we feel comfortable displaying things that low, right? So where it might be an insult somewhere else in the shop to have somebody's work like down here, because people approach that from 15 to 20 feet away in the same direction all the time, we're like, oh yeah, we can display all this work, under the table.
That's right. In some parts of the shop, it's extra stock down below. In here, like we sell like those two particular items in that location repeatedly. And it's because of what she just said. All right, so this one, what you can't see is this is an old dresser, and the height of it is actually higher, which means we have smaller items brought up higher.
So this height.
Yeah. So this jewelry has just fine detail to it, and it can be displayed down here, but to see it, you're going to have to pick it up. And so I like to put it up high for that reason. Also, this is an example, there's not a lot of color. It's a pretty limited color palette. And it's kind of consistent throughout, but we have some texture added in. So the wood grain on here, the flowers up here, the contrast of the dark dresser with the white. So the visual interest here is there's not a lot of products being displayed there, but the visual interest is being produced by the texture, the busts that the necklaces are on play an important part there. There's no fabric otherwise. I guess there's those little muslin bags in the drawer there. Softness, like thinking about color, thinking about texture, thinking about plants and natural things, and then fabric for me, like where is there a softness being added?
So this is a great example of repetition and having the same product that we could easily restack, and it looks good. So these flower stack towels down here, there are a bunch of those because we knew we were going to sell a bunch of them, one, and two, because there's lots of smaller stuff on the other side of the table, it looks good to have that space filled by the same thing over and over again.
Also, that particular item doesn't need a lot of discussion. Our customers don't need us to tell them about it. They know exactly what it is. They're not afraid to pick it up, and they hand it to us, which means we don't have to be available to talk about it a lot. People can shop that item on their own.
The one mistake that we did make in this display is that we didn't have space for both of us behind the table to be able to talk to customers. So this provided great height over here, which gave interest, to people approaching the booth from far away. But one of us had to pop out on this side of the table to help people. And at a busy event, that was tough. So something to keep in mind, where are you going to be? And where are you going to be that's comfortable talking to other people and not creeping out behind you?
A lot of creepy stuff there. You can see the height going on here, and I'll tell you, there's all sorts of things we were doing here. There was particular items we were trying to sell here, and items that we brought knowing that we didn't expect to sell a lot of them, but we found it important in providing the overall story and look of our shop. And the placement of those things, it dictates kind of what we're trying to do. So it's make it look good, but also make it do the work that you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
What are the things that you brought just for the feel of the shop?
Top shelf, it actually doesn't make any sense, right? And you know, we sold a couple of them, and I would say, like, honestly, that was probably, I mean, it's really, especially because one's a breakable up there, that was like, that's not real smart. That could have, I mean, that's kind of a mistake.
But Al's work, those mugs, are exclusive to our shop. And then the coffee is special packaging that Blueprint Coffee did just for us that says Blueprint Coffee for Union Studio. And so whenever we can find those ways to like demonstrate, this is, you can only get at our shop, it's exclusive to us. Oh, we collaborate with other local businesses. Like, those are things outside of having pretty stuff that people like about us. And so even if it's not gonna be great for sales, it's like part of the promotional aspect that we also consider when we leave the store.
Yep. And the truth is that we were low on stock on those also. And so we did sell them off of there, but if we had put them somewhere prominent too, we would have just been having to rebuild the display fairly early in the night. This shop trail, which we collaborated with Firecracker Press on, hadn't been released that long, and it was still pretty hot. And it provided, there was I mean, Firecracker is somewhat well known in the place that we were here, and so it was an important talking point. This was also well attended by both men and women. So there's all sorts of reasons that product placement on this table happened the way it did. All right, this is another pop-up. And this is fairly recently. And I like what we did here for a couple of reasons. We were focusing on our gift basket program, so our ability to provide gift sets like for weddings, for corporate events, different vendors. And so we're showing the actual baskets. We have no intention of selling the full baskets there. But they're important. They're like, that's what the event is for corporate events and special events. And so we've got those there. Again, we're using it here. You see the towels again are a grab and go item, but now we've put them in a basket to again kind of show like multiple, or just to show the gift basket idea. It's, we have the men's items grouped together for groomsmen. We have pantry items grouped together. So again, if someone's interested in pantry items in particular, as we're talking to them, we don't have to point them here and here, right? As we're talking, all those items are together.
And this was also a display like that was concentrated in the middle.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
we were on each side of the display so that we could talk to customers easily, and we weren't trying to like take payment or interact like over the top of the display, which can also be difficult sometimes if somebody's trying to like hand you a card or you're trying to hand them a package and you're like up and over the display. So we were flanking.
Nice. Okay. Do you guys have any questions as we're going here? Is this making sense? Some of the things that we talked about when we're talking about color consistency, honestly, my brain sees color. Like that's if you come in the shop, if you see my own personal work, it is always driven by color. And so that's just what I know. So I'm going to tell you that I think that it's really important. There's all sorts of people that are doing it differently, but I really do think color, consistency of color is really helpful in displays.
Yeah, that's the whole display spiel. So if there are questions about display specifically, we can answer them.
Yeah.
So when you say, is the narrative still going into pieces if you're not selling in person? How do you do that?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about wholesale next. But it's exactly what I said earlier in that, and we run our shop in a way that we like intimately know all of our artists. We know their names, we know their families, we know where they went to school, like we've met their kids. And so that's an important part of our business. And so it sort of comes naturally to us. Things that you can do for people that just want to place an order online and they don't know you is doing what I said, giving display ideas, sending business cards, making sure that they tag you online when they post that they have your stuff so that people have a quick link to your own social media where they can sort of see your story and your narrative. Some people send placards that have like a short about me on them. If you're going to do that, make sure that it's like not an intrusive or large thing. But there's ways for you selling to people that aren't particularly interested in knowing you personally, that they have the materials that if other people want to know, that they can get that information. And if it's local, you know, I would say, like, if you're an established artist in a local shop, like, pop in, say hi. Like, I don't know, people stop in and say hi to us all the time and we get to catch up. And we like that. I can't speak to other people, how they feel about that. But if you're concerned that, like, you're just another card maker in the shop or whatever it is that you make and want to put there, like, make yourself known.
And it could be that, like, that you include a sticker that has your name and your web address on there, so that there isn't a choice, that it's attached to your products in a way that's visually appealing, all of these things. But like, if the story, I mean, the story is going to be told. It's going to be told in your packaging. It's going to be told in your display options in the product that you're making. But if it can't all be there, if it resides through your social media account or your website or however they can access you, then maybe that has to be on your packaging somewhere, that they can get all of that information.
Other questions about display? Yeah.
So for prints, how would you kind of choose the ones that you want to frame? Like, because I kind of saw that you guys had special, like, ones that are kind of recurring that you chose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of these are, you saw probably Greta Collier's prints in there, which we have a seasonal collection that we released with her. So some of these pictures, like that front table and this that you're seeing, I mean, it depends on the market. We know what we expect to sell at an event, so that's one thing, like who is our audience? One is it seasonal? Two, is it hit a price point that we need it to cover? Prints in general, I'll just throw it out there. This is not true for everyone, but in our shop, people typically want them framed. And that might be special to our shop. We offer, sometimes we have the option to get something, to buy it unframed. We will oftentimes say to them, this frame is from IKEA. You could get it cheaper yourself if you drive down the street. And they say, I just want to be done with this and have it wrapped and ready to go. And I say, sweet, that's why we got it framed for you. So I'm just throwing that out there, that something happens with a price point, and I recognize that it drives the price higher, that might not be supported at a pop-up or something like that, so that might be different at a brick and mortar, but I'm just throwing it out there. Because it's consistently over and over again in the 5 years. We've tried. I've been like, people don't buy these frames. Go get them, save yourself some money, because it takes us so much time to frame in volume that we sell now. But that's a real thing.
And if you are framing, like, not that you should jack the price up on a frame that you get from IKEA, but you should, if you are lifting up all of those little tabs, you should charge for that.
I mean, it's a convenience and it's a service. I mean, and the truth is, again, when you're building out a business that you hope is sustainable and doing a certain volume of work is going to catch you. Like, and I think what happens when we start is we don't understand the value of our time. Because when we start, the value of my time to make something when I sell nothing is, it's worth nothing. But what happens then is, as you do this, you realize that the 3 hours of time that it took me to do that, I'm actually capable of producing and selling this volume of work, which is worth this many literal dollars, right? And so it's okay because you want to be nice, or it's okay, like, it's okay to choose to lose that money, but know exactly what the cost of that choice is. That's what we're saying over and over again, is like, I cannot tell you what choices to make, but I can say, like, know your work and yourself and your goals so that you understand what implications your choices have as you do it.
And your customer.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
Do you
ever get pushback from customers, like when you're talking about something that was framed at IKEA? That's one of the things that I'm looking at is like frame and a frame source. Custom framing is expensive.
Yes.
Sure.
I mean, an 8x10 can cost you $50, $60 to have it
Right.
custom framed. But do people want that, or do they care that it's literally an IKEA or a Target or a whatever frame that you happen to pick out?
Our line on that is we want to keep the value of the piece in the art itself. And if you would like a nicer frame, you should get one.
Yeah, it's being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth. It's like, and we would never act like it's something else. I mean, we're upfront with people that it's an IKEA frame because, yeah, like they'll say like, well, if I take it out of the frame, will you sell it to me? And I'll say like, yes, it's going to be not very much cheaper because the actual cost of this good is in the print that's in it by the artist. The IKEA thing is just like convenience.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you find that you have a customer base that really wants that, you can have a list of recommendations of people that have like worked with your stuff that you can send them their way. And because it's all about personal preference, and some people are like, IKEA, I don't want that, and that's fine. But yeah, it's just being honest and upfront, like that this frame cost me $7. So that's what I added to the price plus my framing fee. Yeah. Other questions about display?
All right, wholesale.
Wholesale.
This is where you guys are interested?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Wholesale is helpful? Okay, because there's
We'll see.
we're coming up on time, so I'm going to hustle through this.
All right.
And then we can get to questions. So can we have our next slide, please? So we've talked about wholesale off and on, all night, but we just want to make sure everybody's clear about what it is. And so when you're talking about wholesale, essentially shops are going to purchase items from you to resell in their shops. So say you sell something for $20. I'm going to want to buy it from you for 10, and then I am going to resell it for 20. And so that might sound crazy to you. Why would you do that? But there are a list of reasons why people are interested in wholesale and how it can add to the sustainability of your business. So those are that you can get money up front, right? You don't have to be waiting around for sales. If I say, I'll buy 10 of those from you right now, you don't have to wait for the online sales to come in. You don't have to wait for the pop-ups. You've got money in your pocket. Other thing, so that's like a financial stability aspect, right? There's advertising reasons. If you have work in somebody's shop and they are doing their job well, when they post about it, they tag you in that post. And so you get access to all of their customers, all of their people saying, look, I recommend this because it's in my store. The other piece.
I know, we're going fast. If they don't tag you to your personal work, this is your work, and if they're not giving you credit for your work, reconsider. I mean, I don't know a reason why somebody doesn't give credit to work. It's like, it's not okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Keep going, sorry.
Yeah, so back to Mary Beth's time piece. The other thing that wholesale provides is time for you, right? It's time that you're not at a pop-up. It's times that you're not hustling to do online sales, right? It's somebody else doing that work for you. So sometimes it makes sense to sell at a discount to somebody else so that you don't have to do that work. You also don't have the overhead, right? You're not paying the electric bill. You're not paying rent. You don't have all of those things that are tied into having a brick and mortar storefront. That if you decide that it's worth it to you, it can be really beneficial. What else? I think that's it. So the thing about wholesale though, and the thing that circles back to the pricing discussion that we had earlier, is that wholesale does not make sense and it does not help you if you do not have good wholesale items. Right? So if you painstakingly made something for 12 hours and you are charging $100 for it, but then you have to sell it to me for $50, that's a bad wholesale item because you make I almost said a cuss word.
We're doing so well.
We cuss a lot, so we're doing good. You don't make a lot of money, is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So then we want to talk about what makes a good wholesale item, right? Because it's the only way you get all of the benefits of wholesale. So when you're thinking about your pricing, right, like we said, if you did all of the pricing work that we did earlier, you land on a price of $20. Now you have to cut that in half, right? Because I'm expecting that you're going to sell it to me for 10. Because I don't even get to keep my 10, right? Because I have all of the other stuff that I have to cover. So if you have to cut it in half and you're not making enough money, then it's not a good wholesale item. And that's okay, because not every item in your collection has to be available for wholesale. You can have a wholesale line sheet, right? That shows the items out of your collection that are available. And it doesn't have to include everything that you make. And if somebody wants something off of it, you can say, no, you can't have that. And that's okay. People tell us no all the time, and we're like, good for you. I'm glad you said no. So other things that make wholesale items good. They're easily replicated, right? They can be made in large quantities. This is what we were talking about earlier, is that you can do them in runs, right? One-of-a-kind wholesale items are tough unless you've got the margins already built into the work that you're doing. Other good wholesale items are they have wide appeal, right? So when we buy things wholesale, our hope is that people will buy them from us. And if it's a very small subset of people that are going to like something, we're going to be less interested in buying it because it means that we will have a harder time selling it. Okay. And if you want something to be wholesale, right, and you don't have the money built into it yet, then revisit the list of pricing questions earlier. If I make 20 of them, can I wholesale them? If I make it mandatory that somebody has to order 20 of them in order to get them, then I make money, right? So it's making sure that you are still getting paid at that 50% mark. And if you're not getting paid, that you know what you are getting out of it. I sort of flew through that. So if there are questions about that on our, could we get the next slide? So real quick, we love line sheets when we get them. So a line sheet is something that's gonna have your company name, your contact info, the products that are available, your wholesale price, your suggested retail price, minimums. So a minimum for the whole order, you have to buy $200 worth of goods for me or I won't fill it. And then a per item order, you have to order 3 of each design or I won't make it. Other awesome things to include are expected turnaround time, payment expectations. So do you want half the deposit up front? Can you get paid at drop off? Do they have 30 days to pay once you've dropped off? And then the other thing is if you're doing out of town people, who covers shipping, right? If you make something that's really heavy and you haven't negotiated shipping with your retailer and you have to pay to ship it there, that's taking money out of your pocket. So negotiating shipping with people that are out of town is also important. And line sheets are great because they set expectations, they eliminate confusion, and there's like less back and forth between you and people because the information that they want is right there.
Somebody who's taking new work, you want to make it as easy as possible for them. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like, I mean, I like hate saying this, but that's really true. Like the easier you are to work with and get the information, it doesn't mean you're nice. I'm talking, the easier it is for me to get the information from you, the more I'll restock. I mean, like that's how it works. If it feels like it's work to try and get it over and over again, then whether I'm aware of it or not, I'm gonna put it off. So you're looking at how is it easiest for people to sell this work. If you're interested in line sheets, you want more information about all of that, the truth is, like, you can go online and they'll show, like, there's tons of examples about that. And if you're interested in display ideas, some exercises to do, this is like really nerdy, but it's the truth. is look at other people's displays, scroll through different online images. And something that I do, and I do this like as an exercise in all sorts of things, is that I will gather images or colors, gather them all together, and what I have a reaction to, and then figure out not just things I like, but things I don't like, and then try to figure out, why do I like this, or why don't I like this display? And then you start to understand like what is pleasing to me and why is that happening. And we've talked about this over and over, and people have asked us, like on the displays in particular, like, how do you do this, or why do you do it a certain way? And the truth is the way that we do it is what is visually appealing to us. And it sounds completely egotistical, but this is true and this is true in business, which is you can use other people's benchmarks for all sorts of things, but it's going to change, right? Those people are going to change, and those benchmarks are going to change, and then you're going to be chasing them. And so the only thing that can really guide you, and the only thing that you can truly trust, is yourself, right? The only thing I can really do in the presentation of this work is do it the best that makes sense in my own head. And that sounds egotistical, but I know that. I know what makes sense, but then try to understand yourself in that way. Why does that look good? Why do all of these pictures have this in it? There's like a particular color that I'm drawn to right now, and I like how it works with this. Or, oh my gosh, look at the similarity in all these pictures. They all have this, and that's what I'm pushed away from. Like, that doesn't work for me. This kind of like reflection is it's important. Mm-hmm. It's really important in all the layers of your business.
And we can circle back to questions about wholesale, but can we get our last
Oh, I thought that was our last slide.
Yeah, no, we didn't get there. Yeah, so that what Mary Beth was talking about was the number
jumped
one.
ahead.
Trust your gut.
Hey,
because it's true.
Forgot.
Like, you are your only barometer that you like know intimately enough to be like, yeah, this feels good to me, this doesn't feel good to me. And then what's the next one? If you're gonna miss a deadline, just email. So the thing about this small business world is that we're all humans, right? Like, our dog got sick, you're tired, like, you know, I don't know, there's a million things that pop up in life. And so in our experience in small business is that we've missed deadlines. We are just upfront about it, right? We're upfront with customers, we're upfront with artists. I'm sorry, I know I was supposed to meet you, but I can't get there. Here's how I can reschedule. And we have found that like it's just a great business practice because you're not like trying to figure out what you said to who and when, and like you were just like honest and upfront about it. And that leads into the next one, which is keep your word. It's really important to Mary Beth and I that we can look all of our artists in the eye, that we can look all of our customers in the eye. And that's because that's what feels good to us personally, but it's also good for business. You know, people come back. People want to collaborate with us. People want to work with us because they know that we will be upfront and honest about our expectations, about our limitations, about what our intent is for the community that we're working in. And so that's been really solid advice for us because we both sleep well at night because of that. There's not any like undercover shady dealings that we're doing that like, I don't know. I don't even know how you would do a shady like handmade work deal. Like, hey, you want this necklace? I don't know. What's the last thing you go?
Be careful about oversaturating the market. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that, like, when you're starting out, it's oversaturation. You're like, I could only hoop. I would have this problem. But just be careful about. I mean, this is also like playing nice too. It's not good for your business, and it's not good for other businesses if you're everywhere and everyone's got the same thing. It's not good for your business because then like people start to run sales, and it is possible to be too many places. And also what happens is you start to create competition. And you don't want to do that either. You don't want to create competition with yourself, and you don't want to create competition between other stores. Like, play nice. So you can avoid that by only having certain things at certain places, right? You can be in lots of places, but maybe not all the exact same items in every place.